Dear learners, welcome to Studying with Kollan sir. In my previous videos, I discussed two tenses. If you haven't watched those videos, you can go to the description box. I'll leave the link in. Well, I fervently hope that the videos I made were perfectly watched by you. And I think you have learned those two tenses and there is no confusion about those two tenses. So without wasting a single second, let's move on to the third tense, which is present perfect tense. Well, let's get into it. Dear learners, let's understand what present perfect tense is all about. Present perfect tense refers to an action just finished, but its effect lasts or is going on now. Dear learners, we have to understand two things. First, we have to understand that this tense refers to an action which is just finished, or we can say this tense refers to an action which is just over or which is just complete, but its effect is still going on. Now, for understanding the second part, the effect of it, we have to think of the bells in schools and colleges. No, I am not talking about the electronic bells. I am talking about the bells that are rung or that were rung by people. Suppose somebody rings a bell. Still, some kind of sound continues. Some kind of sound remains. And that sound is known as the resonance. If you understand this word resonance in this perspective and remember it, I think there will be no confusion for understanding this particular tense. Suppose you don't want to understand the second point, that means you don't want to understand or remember the second point, the effect of it, still it will suffice. It will do. You have to remember this point only. That means it refers to an action which is just finished. Okay, now we are going to move on to the form which is of paramount importance. I always tell you that the form has to be learnt properly for forming any sentence following the tense. Well, at first the subject should be there, definitely in the case of assertive sentences, because in the case of interrogative sentences we might have some exceptions. The subject would not be there at first. Okay, the subject would be there at first in the case of assertive sentences, and after that we must have either has or have, and next we would have the verb in its third form, and that's why I have written it as V3, and after that we might have other words as well. Let's have a look at the examples I have written for you. The first one goes, I have done my homework. Here the action of doing the homework is over, but the effect of that is still going on. What is its effect? The effect is that I am quite happy. If my teacher comes, I'll show him or her my homework. It's quite okay with me, and this is the effect going on right now. Let's have a look at the second example and understand it. She has eaten rice. Here the action of eating rice is over, but the effect of that is still going on. That means she is not hungry anymore, or we can say her stomach is full. Now we have to understand the examples technically. At first the subject is written, and after that either has or have is there, and next we have the verb in its third form, and that is what happens in the next example as well. Now we are going to learn where has or have should be used. In case of singular number, that means if the subject is singular number, we are supposed to use has. if the subject is plural number, we are supposed to use have. I'll tell you a trick, as I did in the case of present continuous tense. Look at the word has. The word has comprises 3 letters, whereas the word have consists of 4 letters. So, just like a child imagines, or just like a child thinks or concludes, we can say singular number refers to more than only one person or thing, and that is why the smaller verb, the smaller auxiliary verb has should be used. And in the case of plural number, as it refers to more than one person or thing, a bigger verb, that is have, because it consists of 4 letters, should be used. Okay? You can type in the comment section whether this little trick has helped you or not. Well, we have 2 exceptions to the rules I have just discussed. Though I is singular, we are supposed to use have, and in the case of you, be it singular or plural, we are supposed to use have. Okay, these are the 2 exceptions to the rules. Well, we are now going to look at some constructions of English sentences. She has eaten fried rice. This is an example of an affirmative sentence. I mean, it is an example of a positive sentence. And if you want to turn this positive sentence into a negative one, all you need to do is to put the word not just after the auxiliary verb, and that makes your sentence a negative one. Just have a close look. She has not eaten fried rice, or we can say she hasn't eaten fried rice. Hasn't is the contracted form of has not. Okay, now we are going to have a look at the yes no question made out of the first sentence. For making a yes no question, we just need to put the auxiliary verb before the subject. Here the subject is she, and I have put the auxiliary verb before the subject, and that makes your yes no question. And I tell you that a yes no question is one that could be answered either with yes or with no. Suppose somebody asks you this question, has she eaten fried rice? You can say yes she has, or you can say no she hasn't. These are the short answers. I'll make a video on this later on. Now we have the last question, but not the least one, and that is an example of a WH question. A WH question begins with a WH word, and that's why it is called so. What has she eaten? Just have a close look. The same format is followed over here. Has she eaten? Has she eaten? Only I have put the WH word before the question, and that is what you need to do always. Well, and that makes your WH question. There is another point to be noticed. A WH question should be answered with a new word or some new words. Here the words fried rice are dropped because these words are the answer to this WH question. And definitely you should remember that some words must be left out if you make a WH question out of a yes no question, and those words should be the answer to the WH question. Thanks for watching.